Dahlia Carter was halfway through correcting a teenager's footwork when the studio door swung open and in walked the last thing she expected during the Tuesday night beginner salsa class, a 6-foot-something man in a black cashmere coat, expensive shoes, and the kind of quiet, self-assured presence that didn't belong in her modest dance studio above the hardware store. The music faltered as she blinked at him. His gaze swept the room, pausing on her. "I'm here for the class," he said, voice deep and smooth, like he'd never once been unsure of anything in his life. "You're early," she replied automatically, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "We're just wrapping up the teen group. Adult beginners start in 20. He nodded and walked to the side, removing his coat with slow ease. Underneath, he wore a tailored dark gray shirt that clung to broad shoulders and defined arms. He looked like someone who belonged in a boardroom or on the cover of a men's lifestyle magazine, not someone who'd signed up for her discounted 6-week salsa course. Still, he waited, politely, quietly, watching her. Once the teens cleared out, Dahlia reset the room. Mirrors lined one wall, scuffed wooden floors bore the marks of years of dancers trying their best. She'd bought the studio 3 years ago with everything she had, pouring her heart into building a space where movement could heal. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. She was adjusting the speaker when he stepped closer. "I'm Roman Gallagher," he said, offering a hand. There it was again, that calm confidence. No arrogance, just stillness. He was the kind of man you noticed without him trying. "Dahlia Carter," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was warm, firm, grounding. Others trickled in, mostly women in their 20s and 30s, a couple of older gents who came for the exercise. Roman stood out like a diamond in a gravel pit. Dahlia paired people up, then looked back at him. "I guess you're with me," she said, motioning him to the center. He raised an eyebrow. "Lucky me." She ignored the way that made her stomach flutter. They began with the basic steps, Dahlia leading at first. Roman followed surprisingly well. "Too well." "You've done this before," she said, pulling back slightly. "Once or twice," he admitted. "But I wanted to start fresh. Learn it right." His gaze met hers, steady and unreadable. She looked away, focusing on the music. Over the next hour, he moved with quiet precision. When she corrected his hand placement, he adjusted instantly. When she teased him for being too stiff in the hips, he laughed deep and low and loosened up. By the end of class, the others were sweaty and smiling, but Dahlia's heart was racing for an entirely different reason. "You're good," she said as she handed him his coat. "I like learning from someone who knows what they're doing," he replied, eyes lingering on hers. "I'll see you next week?" She nodded, even as her brain screamed that something about this didn't add up. Men like that didn't just wander into dance studios in small towns like hers. He left without asking for her number, without saying anything else. Just a nod, and then he disappeared into a sleek black car parked across the street. The weeks that followed were strange in all the best ways. Roman came every Tuesday. He never missed a class, never made excuses. He practiced, asked questions, listened. And though he never flirted outright, there was something in the way he watched her when she wasn't looking, something that made Dahlia's pulse quicken. She couldn't stop thinking about him, but she also couldn't understand why he was there. One night, halfway through week 4, she finally asked, "You don't seem like the type who signs up for local dance classes." He looked at her, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Maybe I just needed a change." "From what?" He hesitated, then looked away. "Work, life, noise." She didn't push. But something about the way he said it quietly, like it cost him something, made her chest tighten. After class, he lingered while the others grabbed their coats. She was wiping down the mirrors when he spoke again. "Dahlia," he said, and the way he said her name made her stop moving. "Yeah? I'm going to a fundraiser this weekend. In the city. I need a partner. Someone who knows how to dance." She blinked. "You want me to go with you?" He nodded. "Why me?" "Because I trust you. And because I'd rather go with someone real." She hesitated. It was impulsive. Ridiculous. She barely knew him. But her gut said yes before her brain could talk her out of it. "Okay," she said. "But only if I pick the shoes." He laughed. Deal. Saturday night came fast. Roman sent a town car to pick her up. Inside was a dress box with a note, couldn't resist. Inside was a midnight blue gown that felt soft as water and fit her like it had been made for her body. She stared at it for 5 full minutes before slipping it on. The venue was a downtown high-rise, glowing with chandeliers and silk-draped tables. Roman met her at the entrance, in a black tux that made her knees weak. You look. He started, eyes traveling over her. Like trouble. She laughed, heart pounding. You're not so bad yourself. He offered his arm and she took it. They danced, talked, laughed, and when the slow song came on, he pulled her close, hand gentle at the small of her back. I haven't done this in years, he murmured. Slow dancing, trusting someone. She looked up at him. You don't even know me. I'm working on that, he said quietly, eyes locked on hers. And just like that, the room disappeared. It was just them, her heart racing, his breath warm against her cheek, and a connection that felt impossible to explain. That night, as he walked her to the car, neither of them said much. But before she got in, he leaned closer. I meant what I said, he whispered. I trust you, and I don't trust easily. She stared at him, barely breathing. I'll see you Tuesday, he added, stepping back. As the car pulled away, Dahlia didn't know what scared her more, that he was falling for her, or that she might be falling right back. Tuesday came with a chill in the air and a strange restlessness Dahlia couldn't shake. She told herself all weekend that the gala hadn't meant anything, that he'd only invited her for the dancing, that he treated everyone with that same quiet intensity. But as she stepped into the studio and saw Roman already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, hands in his pockets, she knew she'd been lying to herself. He looked up the moment her foot crossed the threshold. You're early, she said, setting her bag down a little more forcefully than necessary. I had a feeling tonight might start differently. She crossed her arms and tilted her head. You mean like a private lesson? No, he said, taking a step closer. Like a conversation. She leaned against the bar, keeping distance between them, trying to ignore the fact that his presence felt like gravity. That fundraiser, she began, voice carefully even. It wasn't your scene either, was it? He exhaled slowly. Not mine, no. But I'm expected to show up. Smile. Shake hands. Expected by who? My board. My family. The people who think my name equals stability. She frowned. So you're someone important. Only to people who want something from me. She didn't respond right away. Something in his tone made her hesitate. He ran a hand along the back of his neck. I started a company 12 years ago. Tech infrastructure. Security software. It grew too fast. I sold part of it, kept the rest. I'm listed on things I don't even read. Her brows rose. That's not exactly something you just drop into conversation. It never mattered before. But I don't want you thinking I lied by omission either. She studied him. Is that why you came here? To hide out. I came because I needed something real. I didn't expect it to come with you. Heat rose to her cheeks, but she didn't look away. So what happens now? You keep showing up to class pretending to be just another student. I wasn't pretending, he said. Every step, every turn I was there for it. With you. That silenced her. Not because she didn't believe him, but because she did. The door swung open and a few early students filed in, chattering about the weather and parking. Dahlia straightened and Roman stepped back, the moment slipping between them like sand through fingers. Class went on. She led. He followed. But the air between them had shifted. It wasn't just chemistry anymore. It was possibility. Afterward, she lingered by the stereo, pretending to organize cables. Roman waited until the last dancer left, then approached. I didn't come here looking for anything, he said softly. But I found something anyway, she swallowed. It's complicated. I know. But I'm not leaving. She finally turned to face him. What are you offering, Roman? Really? He didn't hesitate. Time. Honesty. Anything you'll take. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Words wouldn't come. He handed her a folded paper. I'm hosting a dinner Friday. Just a few people. Nothing formal. Come if you want to see my world. No pressure. No dancing. She took it, fingers brushing his. I'll think about it. He nodded once, then left with a quiet goodnight. That night, Dahlia stared at the invitation for 20 minutes before placing it under a stack of unopened mail. She told herself she wouldn't go. By Thursday, she'd already picked out a dress. Friday evening, a black town car met her outside the studio. This time, there was no gown waiting. Just a driver with her name on a card and directions to a private address in the hills outside the city. The estate wasn't just big, it was cinematic. Wrought iron gates, a winding drive, and a house that looked carved from stone and glass. Warm lights glowed behind tall windows. She pressed her hands to her thighs as the driver opened the door. The door opened before she could knock. Roman stood there in a charcoal button-down, sleeves pushed back, collar slightly open. The man was wealth in human form, but tonight he looked almost vulnerable. You came, he said, stepping aside. I wanted to see, she replied, brushing past him. The inside was sleek but lived in. Art lined the hallways, but not the kind chosen by decorators. The piano in the corner had worn keys. A half-finished chess game set near the window, pieces left mid-battle. He led her to a dining room where a long table was set for 6. A woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and silver earrings stood pouring wine. Dahlia, this is my Aunt Evelyn. She raised me after my parents died. Evelyn held her gaze a moment, then smiled. So you're the dancer who's got him spinning. Dahlia choked on her breath. Aya, relax, Evelyn said, handing her a glass. He hasn't brought anyone home in years. I was starting to think he'd married his balance sheets. Dinner was warm and casual. Roman's friends weren't stuffy business types but artists, a journalist, and a jazz musician who'd once toured the world and now taught at a local college. They spoke of music, travel, and things Dahlia didn't pretend to know, but they never made her feel out of place. After dessert, Roman led her out to the terrace. The city lights sparkled below them in a velvet sprawl. You didn't have to invite me here, she said, arms crossed against the breeze. I did, he replied. Because I need you to know this isn't a game. I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. She looked up at him. But I don't belong in this world. He stepped closer. Then I'll meet you in yours. Every time. As many times as it takes. She stared at him, heart racing in her chest. Why me? His expression changed, something deeper, something raw. Because when I look at you, I forget everything I'm supposed to care about. And remember everything I never knew I wanted. She didn't kiss him. Not yet. But she didn't move away either. And for the first time since he walked into her studio, she let herself wonder what it would feel like to fall completely, recklessly, and without a single step planned. The invitation had barely cooled on her kitchen table before Dahlia got the first call from a reporter. She stood in her tiny galley kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, listening to a woman with a polished voice ask if she was the dancer seen with Roman Gallagher at his private estate last weekend. She hung up without replying. By noon, 2 more calls came in. By nightfall, someone had emailed the studio asking if the Gallagher girl was taking on private clients. She didn't respond to any of it. Instead, she locked the front door of the studio an hour early and sat in the middle of the floor, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Roman hadn't warned her, hadn't said a word about what would happen once people knew he wasn't just some quiet guy in dance shoes. She was still sitting there when her phone buzzed. She ignored it at first, then checked. Not a number. Just a name, Roman. She let it ring out. 2 minutes later, a knock came at the studio door. She didn't move. Another knock. Then his voice. Dahlia, I know you're in there. She stood slowly, walked to the door, and unlocked it without a word. He stepped inside, his expression unreadable. I didn't think it would happen this fast, he said. I should have known better. You think. Her voice was quieter than she'd intended. I didn't tell anyone. That night, the guests, every one of them is someone I trust. I got 3 calls today. One of them asked if I was your fiancé. His jaw tightened. I'll take care of it. You can't take care of me like I'm a PR problem. I didn't mean it like that. She crossed her arms, suddenly cold. I'm not built for this. You think I am? You've had years to get used to it. I never got used to it. I just learned how to live through the noise. She looked up at him, something sharp in her throat. I built this place with a loan and a second job. I sweep the floors myself. I teach kids who can't afford classes for free because no one else will. I'm not someone who belongs in headlines. You belong wherever you choose to be. I didn't choose this. No, he said quietly. You chose me. For a moment the room stilled. Then she shook her head. I didn't choose anything. I danced with a stranger. Then suddenly I'm being watched. He stepped closer. I never wanted to drag you into my world. But you did. I know. She stared at the floor. I need space. He didn't argue. Didn't say another word. Just nodded once, turned, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just stood there, the silence louder than the music ever had been. For the next 3 days, she worked. Every class ran on time. Every student got their lesson. Every mirror stayed spotless. But something was missing. Her rhythm. She went through the motions, but her mind kept drifting. Not to the gala. Not to the terrace. To the way Roman had looked at her when he said, "You chose me." He hadn't begged. Hadn't made promises. He'd just told the truth. By Friday, she couldn't sleep. She paced her apartment, heart thudding in her chest. Everything she'd worked for was still hers, untouched. But it didn't feel right anymore. She needed to see him. Not because she missed the attention. Because she missed the man. She drove to the only address she had. The estate was dark except for one window near the back. She hesitated at the gate. Just as she reached for the call button, it buzzed open. She blinked. Then drove through. He met her at the front door again, this time in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, barefoot. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I wasn't sure either. He stepped aside. You want to come in, or do we stand here all night pretending this isn't real? She walked past him. The house was quiet. No staff. No music. Just them. I didn't know what I was walking into, she said as he handed her a glass of water. I should have told you who I was. But I didn't want you to look at me differently. I didn't. Not until the world did it for me. He leaned against the counter. I can't stop the press. But I can give you space. Time. Whatever you need. I don't want time, she said. That surprised him. No? I want clarity. He studied her. Ask me anything. She didn't hesitate. Why me? I've met thousands of people who want something from me. You never asked for anything. Not once. That's not a reason to fall for someone. It's not the only reason. She waited. You challenged me, Dahlia. Every week. You made me laugh when I didn't remember how. You made me focus on something other than deals and deadlines. You made me feel like a man, not a name. Her throat tightened. You made me forget how small my world was. It's not small, he said. It's full. It's honest. It's yours. They stood in silence for a moment, the distance between them shrinking by the second. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a slip of paper. I bought something, he said. She frowned. What? He held it out. It was a deed. Her studio's address. Her name still listed as owner. Her eyes snapped to his. I paid off the loan. Quietly. No one knows but you and me. It's still yours. Always will be. But now it's safe. Her hand trembled as she held the paper. I didn't ask for this. I know. But I did it because I could. And because it's the one place I've felt alive in years. She looked up at him, heart pounding. I'm not used to people doing things for me. Not without expecting something in return. I don't want anything from you except one thing. What? Another dance. Her breath caught. No one watching. No gala. No pressure. Just you. And me. She didn't answer. She just stepped forward, took his hand, and let the music in her head guide her. They danced slowly in the kitchen, bare feet on cool tile, the city lights flickering through the windows. No rhythm. No choreography. Just connection. And for the first time, she understood. He hadn't fallen for her because she was different. He'd fallen because, with her, he didn't have to be anyone else. The first time Roman stepped into her apartment, he paused just inside the doorway, his eyes scanning the tiny space where exposed brick met shelves stacked with music books and dance shoes. "This feels like you," he said, running a hand along the edge of the small kitchen table where sheet music sat beneath a coffee cup. Dahlia leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "It's not much. It's real. No marble. No glass walls. No silence pretending to be peace." She walked past him, tossing her keys into the ceramic dish by the sink. "I didn't invite you here to impress you. You didn't have to." They hadn't spoken in over a week since the night he danced with her in his kitchen. She'd taken time to breathe, to think, to ask herself whether what they had was something she could carry into the life she'd built with her own hands. He hadn't pressured. Not once. He left her space, but never let the thread between them fray. She turned to face him. "I need to know you're not going to treat this like something that only exists in the quiet corners of your life." "I'm not hiding you, Dahlia. That was never the plan." "You didn't have a plan." "No," he stepped closer. "But I have one now." She narrowed her eyes. "What kind of plan?" "Something I never thought I'd say out loud," he admitted. "I want to build a life that includes someone who can look me in the eye and not flinch when I'm quiet. Or when I'm selfish. Or when I forget how to be anything but driven." She didn't respond. Instead, she walked toward the record player near the window, flipped through a stack of vinyl, and put on something old and slow, the kind of music that filled a room without trying. He watched her, silent. She turned back, her voice even. "I don't want to be a secret. I don't want to be protected. I want to be chosen. Every day." "You are," he said, stepping forward, voice steady. "But if you need to see it, I'll show you." She raised an eyebrow. "How?" "Come with me." "Where?" He didn't answer, just held out his hand. She hesitated for only a moment before taking it. The car ride was quiet, the city lights giving way to wider streets and taller buildings. But they didn't stop at the estate. They pulled in front of a long, low building with floor-to-ceiling windows, where people in suits and gowns filtered through gilded double doors. A banner hung above the entrance. Gallagher Foundation. Art and Movement Initiative launch. She blinked. "What is this?" He turned to her, voice low. "You said you didn't want to be a secret. So tonight, you're not." Her stomach flipped. "Roman." He didn't give her time to back away. He stepped out, came around to her side, and opened the door. Flashbulbs went off instantly. He reached for her hand. "You don't have to say anything. Just walk in with me." She stepped out, shoulders squared, chin high. She didn't smile, didn't wave, but she held his hand as they walked through the crowd of flashing lights and murmurs. Inside, the room was a gallery of motion-suspended photographs of dancers, installations of moving sculptures, and a space cleared for a performance stage. He led her to the center, where a small group waited. A woman approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Gallagher," she said, then turned to Dahlia with a warm smile. "We've set the stage as requested." Dahlia frowned. "Requested?" Roman looked at her. "You once told me your students were the reason you kept fighting to keep that studio. That when you felt like giving up, they kept showing up anyway." She stared at him, confused. He gestured to the stage. The lights shifted and a group of teenagers stepped onto the platform. Her students. Every one of them dressed in black and silver, eyes darting toward her in excitement. She gasped. "How did you?" I asked. "They showed up. Because they believe in you." The music started, something vibrant and proud. The students moved through the choreography she drilled into them over months of work, but tonight they danced like they were flying. When the final note hit, the crowd erupted into applause. Roman leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm establishing an endowment for youth arts and dance programs. Starting with your studio. Full funding. No restrictions. No strings. Just access for kids who need it." In your name. Dahlia's breath caught. Roman. It's not a gift. It's a beginning. Her eyes stung, but she refused to blink. Why are you doing this? Because you taught me how to move again. And I want the world to know what you've always known, that movement isn't just about steps. It's about survival. She looked at him, unable to speak. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. No cameras. No speeches. Just him. He opened it slowly. Inside sat a ring, simple, elegant, a single emerald-cut diamond on a platinum band. He didn't kneel. He didn't have to. I don't care where we live, what name you keep, or who sees us. I just want you with me. Not because it's convenient. Because it's right. She stared at the ring, then back at him. This isn't how I pictured my life, she whispered. Mine either, he replied. She took the box from his hand and closed it. Then she leaned in, kissed him slow and certain, and pulled back just far enough to whisper, yes. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't know. But it didn't matter. Because in that moment, with the lights dimming and her students laughing behind her, Dahlia Carter wasn't the girl from above the hardware store anymore. She was the woman a billionaire chose to build a future with, not because she fit into his world, but because she made him want to build a new one entirely. Dahlia stood just outside the studio's back door, barefoot on the cool concrete, watching the early morning fog roll along the edge of the street. A mug of coffee warmed her hands, but her mind was elsewhere, half in a dream, half in the life that had unfolded with such dizzying speed it still didn't feel entirely real. Inside, the studio buzzed with the hum of new speakers being installed, courtesy of a grant from the Gallagher Foundation's Movement Initiative. The front windows now bore a fresh decal, the Dahlia Carter Dance Collective. She hadn't asked for the name change. Roman had surprised her with it after she'd signed the paperwork as co-director of the Foundation's Arts Division, a role she never would have imagined for herself a month ago. Behind her, the door creaked open. You planning to stay out here until the coffee runs dry? Roman's voice was low, amused, still rough from sleep. She turned to find him leaning against the doorway, barefoot like her, sleeves pushed up, hair still tousled. He looked like he belonged in her mornings, like he always had. I'm trying to remember everything before it changes again, she said, taking a sip. Before this all becomes normal. He stepped beside her, slipping his hand around her waist. Maybe it's not supposed to be normal. Maybe it's just supposed to be ours. She leaned into him. Do you ever get scared? Every day. He didn't hesitate. But not of you. Not of us. She glanced up. Then what? That I'll wake up and forget how to deserve this. You don't have to deserve it, she said quietly. You just have to show up. And you do. He kissed her temple, then stepped back. All right, come inside. We've got exactly 42 minutes before the contractors arrive, and I want to show you something. She followed him through the back hallway and into the now cleared second studio space. Where there used to be old mats and discontinued mirrors, there was now a long, polished wooden table surrounded by 6 chairs and a side wall covered in sketches and notes. This is where the Foundation's youth board will meet, Roman said. You said you wanted them to have a voice. So we're giving them one. Dahlia turned slowly, absorbing every detail. You really listened. I always do. I just didn't always know how to respond. She stepped closer, tracing her fingers along the edge of the table. What's this? She asked, pointing to a blueprint pinned near the bottom corner of the wall. It showed a layout she didn't recognize: open air, a stage, tiered seating. That, Roman said, is the plan for a performance space. Outdoors, built on the East Lot. Community access, free summer programs, live showcases. Your students deserve a stage. She blinked. Roman, this is just the beginning, he finished. I want to build a life that never stops making room for what matters. And what you do, who you are, that matters more than anything I've ever built. She turned to him, emotion knotting in her chest. I don't have words for this. You don't need them, he said, resting his forehead against hers. Just keep dancing. That's all I'll ever ask of you. Later that afternoon, they held a small ceremony for the students and families. No press, No photographers. Just music, laughter, and a ribbon cut with oversized scissors Roman insisted on buying because every celebration needs something ridiculous. When the last guest left, Dahlia found herself in the middle of the studio, still barefoot, twirling slowly to a record playing in the corner. Roman watched her from the wall, arms crossed, something soft in his expression. "Come join me," she said, holding out a hand. He raised an eyebrow. "I thought you said I still needed work on my rhythm." "You do," she teased, "but lucky for you, you're marrying a professional." He walked toward her, took her hand, and pulled her close. "Is that your way of saying yes again?" She nodded. "It's my way of saying always." They danced to the end of the record, not caring when the music faded into silence. Weeks passed, then months. The studio thrived, filled with the sounds of movement, laughter, and the occasional chaos of children learning to count in rhythm. Dahlia's role in the foundation grew, not just in name but in impact. She traveled to schools, spoke at panels, and mentored young dancers from neighborhoods like the one she'd grown up in. Roman never missed a single performance. They learned how to live in each other's worlds without losing their own. He brought her to board meetings where she challenged policies with quiet fierceness. She brought him to family dinners where her cousins grilled him on his 2 left feet and her grandmother offered to teach him how to make cornbread. They fought sometimes. About schedules, about boundaries, about how much was too much, but they always returned to each other. One evening, after a long day of rehearsals and meetings, they sat on the roof of their new home, a renovated brownstone near the studio. With creaky stairs and a rooftop garden, Dahlia had insisted on planting herself. Roman handed her a glass of wine and leaned back on the blanket beside her. "Do you ever miss your old life?" she asked, watching the city blink below them. "I don't think about it," he replied. "Not the way I used to. It was never real. Not like this." She looked at him. "And what is this?" He smiled, the kind that started in his eyes and ended in the lines around his mouth. "This is the first thing that's ever felt permanent." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Then let's keep building it." They watched the stars in silence, the kind that didn't need words. The next spring, they married in the courtyard of the new performance space. Her students danced. Her mother cried. Roman wore a navy suit and looked at her like she was the only person in the world. She walked down the aisle barefoot. Because some things, no matter how much the world changes, never need to. And when they exchanged vows, there were no promises of perfection. Only the quiet certainty that they would keep showing up. Keep dancing. Keep loving. Always.